There are many iconic elements from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but few are as recognizable as the vehicles from the Playmates line that made their way into the show. One of these vehicles was the Turtle Van, or as it was later branded, the Turtle Party Wagon. But where did the idea of the Turtles owning a van come from? Was it from the comics, or a completely new idea for the toy line? How would the Turtles even own a vehicle, and what was its final fate? Discover all this and more in today's episode of Totally Radical Machines, the Turtle Party Wagon. Curiously, the Turtle Van has its origins in the third issue of TMNT in 1985, but it wasn't yet the iconic vehicle it would later become. Legend has it that Kevin Eastman always wanted to do a car chase scene in a comic book, but to do so, he and Peter Laird needed to introduce a vehicle for our heroes. Having just met April O'Neil, the Turtles were picked up by her after finding their lair destroyed and their master gone. She appeared in her blue Volkswagen Bus, a model popular enough to confuse the police as they chased another van of the same model that had just been used in a robbery only 20 minutes earlier. Since the idea of a car chase was Kevin's, it was only logical that he would choose the vehicle. His dad used to have one like that when he was a kid, and it was also featured in the underground comic book series The Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. This van from the 60s, however, was still far from the Turtle Van. So when did things start to change? When Playmates began developing the toy line, toy designer John Handy was in charge of creating new villains, playsets, and vehicles. One of the options he considered was a vehicle based on the only mode of transportation introduced in the comics so far, April's van. John's version of the van was heavily weaponized and would also have served as a weapons locker. It's unclear how far this design went, but elements of the Volkswagen Bus were still there. Two elements on the front would survive this round, the circle at the front and the big turtle grin. Eventually, John went back to Mattel, and in his place, legendary toy designer Mark Taylor of Masters of the Universe fame came in to add some of the line's most iconic touches. One of his contributions was the van. With the working title Battle Van, this vehicle took on its final trademark features, including the side door tenderizer, the turtle-themed roof, the different sized tires, and even the armored windows. The turtle grin was now the van's front bumper, and together with the headlights and the armored windshield, they gave the van a face. But from the start, the Volkswagen Bus design had one problem. It wasn't wide enough to hold 4 chunky turtles, let alone 6 figures. Therefore, the prototype had to be much wider than the actual van, and this is when the Party Wagon became its own thing. The final product had at least 2 interconnected play mechanisms. One was the opening of the turtle-plated flip top by controlling its super spoiler. This would also set the spring-action foot tenderizer open, allowing one turtle to sit in it, ready to attack, and be held by a rubber band. The same mechanism would also release a ramp, which could optionally release a stink bomb and a laugh gas bomb. As mentioned earlier, the van had a foldable, shell-proof, armored windshield visor with an integrated foot finder radar and blaster. The final accessories would be side mirrors with dual CB antennae machine guns. The final production details came with the actual name of the product. The working title was Battle Van, which could have easily been the final one. But, as you already know, the vehicle was released under the more toyetic name Turtle Party Wagon. The van term, however, was still present in the Mutant Attack Van tagline. Exactly who came up with the new name and why isn't documented. So far, the vehicle has been referred to as a van because of the Volkswagen Bus. Party wagon was a vanning culture slang term for tricked-out cars in the 1970s, mostly for big American V8s, which were very different from the Volkswagen old models. Volkswagen eventually coined the term vanagon in the 80s to market the T3 as having a van's interior space but with a wagon's easier driving manners. The toy was released within the first year of the toy line. But toys are easier to sell when they have a story element. The Party Wagon was adapted for the first season of the 1987 animated series by David Wise and Patty Howarth. It was initially Baxter Stockman's van, which the Turtles later appropriated for themselves and retooled to help them track down the Technodrome. The animated design was even further detached from the original Volkswagen Bus. It was based on the toy, but simplified for animation and more visually distinct. It's worth mentioning that the features on the animated van were not set in stone. Its size, design, and technological enhancements would vary from episode to episode. Some of these improvements would be story-driven, such as the ability to float or even travel underwater. One of the toy's main features was also the most inconsistent in the animation: the side door. This door could either fold sideways or down. For the toy line, a Channel 6 van was released in 1993, essentially a repaint of the Party Wagon with key differences in accessories and play mechanics. For example, instead of a foot tenderizer, it came with a longer ramp with a mobile cam unit. It also included an April variant in a green jumpsuit. In the show, the Turtle Van survived until the very last episode, where it suffered severe damage during their final battle against Lord Dreg. Having said that, it'd be safe to assume that Donatello was able to fix the vehicle on the spot. One inconvenient consequence of progressively morphing the van from the bus to the animated version was that it no longer matched something fans could easily customize their cars into. Many vehicles resembled the Party Wagon over the years, like the one used at the Disney parks in the 90s, which could barely hold the Turtles, or the 25th anniversary tour bus, which wasn't even a van. However, this didn't stop fans and customizers from creating their own versions, such as Jason Ibarra's Turtle Van, which is most commonly used for parades and charity events. Perhaps one of the most accurate replicas of the toys can be found in Illinois' Volo Museum, along with other famous pop culture vehicles. This replica was built by Jay Orberg, a famous car collector and builder specializing in film and television. The replica was created for marketing reasons and has been a part of the museum's collection since 2008. Being the very first iconic vehicle to be released and adapted into animation, along with the blimp, the Party Wagon became an essential part of the lore. It was reissued many times by Playmates with slight modifications, and later reimagined by companies like Super 7 and NECA. This also includes a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive repaint as Mikey's Pizza Delivery Van. The Party Wagon would later be adapted into other versions of the Turtles, such as the 2012 animated series and the IDW comics. But those have backstories worth telling in future videos. The Turtle Van was far from the only iconic vehicle in this franchise, but it was certainly the most memorable. Make sure to subscribe for future installments of Totally Radical Machines, so you don't miss other great modern marvels of the Turtleverse. Did you ever have this vehicle? What are your memories of it? And which other machine from the franchise would you like me to cover? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the sewers.